by my assumption, rebuttable as it may be, was on the strength of your letter, a partner for the public was facilitated by your letter. Is it right?
Yes. With the recitals and everything. And based on the agreements, they went ahead to execute what they wanted to execute. Some, now that even Ghana First is saying that some contractors owe them, they want to take their money. So if anybody will say that on the strength of this introduction to the assemblies, that this is what they want to do, find out whether it's feasible or not. And you say that based on that, you'll be engaged as a contractor, so government should come and pay you. If you put it that way, it becomes a bit difficult. We have interest, we know the contractors have interest, and
we'll be interested in you ensuring that Ghana First Company is pursued.
Yes.
The investigations should get to a logical conclusion.
Certainly.
And those affected are given their money commensurate to the work that is done. Now, my final question, Chairman, to the nominee. These Sama people, how do they call them? Samai. Chairman, my tree is not good. Samai people, those trained on the sanitation model. You remember myself and you, I should recognize what role you played. When we're trying to pass the Youth Employment Act, our anticipation was that you develop the sanitation model. Don't you think that that category of people should be hived off and they can be compensated for adequately by the Youth Employment Act, instead of the status where many of them have passed out, they are still at home, they don't know their fate, they don't know where they'll be employed, yet we have a sanitation crisis as a country. What would be your take on this?
So, Mr. Chairman, I think leader is talking about YEA, employees of YEA, and whether they are permanent employees or temporary ones, and how to deal with the situation. Probably if YEA were to come in, we could have a look at it. But my understanding is that some persons have been put on the payroll, and based on the work that they do, they are paid. Except that as to the challenge is the regularity of funding for some of these programs, and it tends to more or less reduce the impact that we expect to have as far as youth employment is concerned. But having it off or scrapping it all together, we need to sit down and look at it carefully.
Have you visited any of the sites as a deputy minister? Have you visited any of the sites like Northeast at Nalirgo area there? I hear one of the district assemblies is still in the hotel. Are you aware of that?
As far as I'm concerned, no assemblies in the hotel. As far as I'm concerned. Yes, if you talk about districts, we visited a lot of districts. But for the creation of regions, because it was under a different ministry, a lot has been done there, but that decentralization aspect is now coming back to local government, and we will have time to look at all those things. As far as we are concerned, what was started under Ministry of Regional Reorganization and Development has gone on very well. They are at various stages of development, and we will continue from there.
So now he assumes Deputy Senior Minister Part 2. I wish you well. And
but it's a 4-year journey, so you can never tell whether I'll still be Senior Deputy Minister or I'll move on. And apart from that,
is it a whisper to the president?
Apart from that, I believe in teamwork, and it's a whole team.
His minister is under threat, Mr. Chairman.
You should be honored.
If that is his aspiration, his minister should watch out.
Oh, you should be honored to be part of the team, and when the team wins, you're all happy. That's how I look at it. There are some who have served as cabinet ministers and are ready to serve in other positions. So that is how we should all look at it. You never walk alone. James Milner.
Honorable Obiamwa, you're a member of this committee. So
I'll come and sit here and vet my colleague.
I will not ask you any more questions. Thank you for attending upon the House to answer the questions. Now, kindly come back and take your seat so as to do the last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful to my friends and colleagues on this committee.
Thank you very much. Now, kindly bring in the last nominee. I'm exhausted, but. Kindly administer the oath to the nominee.
I, Tim Augustine Collins,
Swear by Almighty God
swear by the Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
touching the matter in issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So help me God.
Honorable Collins. Is Augustine first? Augustine Collins and Tim.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
On behalf of the committee, we congratulate you on your nomination again as a Deputy Minister for Local Government.
Thank you so much.
Now the ministry is changed to Government, Decentralization and Rural Development. So it's a new ministry, so to speak. Now, you have appeared before this committee previously. You are a fourth-term member of Parliament still surviving here. You are one of them.
Thank you.
So you are not new to the Parliament of Ghana. Is there anything new you want to tell us? Otherwise,
thank you.
Let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, except to say that I entered politics, or I started politics as an assembly member through the engineering work of the king of my hometown, King Kesu, the counseling that he gave, and then one gentleman by name Nana Ajiman, also from King Kesu. And according to them, they saw a potential in me to help develop the constituency, of East North constituency. I needed a platform to advertise myself, so I can have opportunity as a DC to serve. I caught the eye of His Excellency, the former President, John Ajikun Kufuor, who nominated me as the District Chief Executive, and I had approval and became the first District Chief Executive to have come from the Offense North constituency, the whole Offense North tradition. Mr. Chairman, through a dint of hard work and with extensive collaboration efforts between myself and my two members of Parliament, namely the Honorable Dr. Apreku and Honorable Safo, the late Safo, we did a lot of interventions, critically in the areas of agriculture. Within 5 months of being in office as a chief executive, I had raised hundreds of thousands of seedlings of oil palm, cocoa, and citrus in all the 25 electoral areas. Indeed, I was aimed at giving practical means of poverty reduction strategy. And I used the power vested in me as a chief executive, engage 500 people, 20 from each of the 25 electoral areas, and then we paid them to support the farmers to plant, making sure that whatever quantums or seedlings that we raised at that time get to the farmers and get planted. Indeed, it did a lot of work and impact. Mr. Chairman, apart from that, with the collaboration of my MPs, we also work to have the Offensive South constituency elevated into a municipal status, and then Offensive North as a district. I moved in that, and then all the things that I did endeared me to the heart of the people of Offensive North, including His Excellency, the former president. So I stood on the ticket as a member of parliament for MPP, and I won. And from 2009 to date, I have been a member of parliament for Offensive North. Mr. Chairman, in 2017, when the MPP won power, I had the privilege and honor to be invited by the Mr. President to support my minister. What I was doing in Offensive North, trying to raise ceilings of oil palm cuckoo and all that, to support my minister in collaboration with the Minister for Food and Agriculture to replicate it and decentralized industrialization agenda. And something which I did with FNL, and that collaborative effort between my minister, Honorable Hajia, and Dr. Usu Afiri gave birth to something we call the Planting for Export and Rural Development, which was a diversification agenda in the rural economy, trying to develop about 6 tree crops to the level I came to cocoa. The crops includes mainly cashew, oil palm, coconuts, coffee, and all that, so that it will not only create jobs, but then it will also help adopting measures to address the effect of the climate change. Mr. Chairman, and I'm here before you again to be vetted so that I can continue to support my minister to drive to do just that. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Honorable Ajari.
We pride ourselves in decentralization. Will you agree with me if I say that decentralization without
continue to depend on what the central government will release to the assembly by way of district assembly common fund? Within the local governance system, the various assemblies, we have the potential in terms of property rates and all the revenue items. What we need to do is to develop the capacities of the assemblies for them to appreciate the need to be able to collect sufficient tax to be able to implement their medium-term expenditures, payments, and all that. And something we have the focus of the ministry through the working through the assemblies has to do with galvanizing the people to own an enterprise, so that with that enterprise, the people there will earn a living.
over the MMDAs. Sanity, which is an albatross on our necks, is actually dealt with properly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You are right. Sanitation is a major issue confront. As you rightly said, it's Ministry for Sanitation has been. They are in charge of coming out with all the policies regarding sanitation management and all. That notwithstanding, all the programs, intervention eventually finds expression at the streets for implementation. And for that matter, local government cannot exonerate itself. What we are doing, and then we continue to support the Honorable Minister, is to continue to develop the capacities of the assemblies in terms of logistics, and then appreciating the role they have to in terms of helping clean the environment, so that at least the expectation of people like you and the citizens of Ghana, as far as sanitation is concerned, will be met. Thank you.
My last question. What is your take on resourcing assembly members to do their work efficiently?
Yes, it is germane. It is correct that if you really expect an excellent performance from your client, then you need to develop the capacity, you need to provide the resources. And this is exactly what the Ministry of Local Government over the years has been doing. They need to interact more frequently with the people under their jurisdictions. And some of them have to travel far to be able to reach out to them. So as a ministry, we've been consistently providing them with transport, motorbikes. Last time we provided each of the assembly members. I mean, we procured about 10,000 of them, provide them so as to ease to ease their mobility challenges, and then they will be able to interact more frequently with the people they control. And I think we continue to support the minister to do just that.
This is a follow-up because a follow-up. Last one I've tried today. I've given you a lot of time. So let me take this one last question. It is correct that you give them motorcycles. We all know that motorcycles on their own cannot move. They need fuel to move.
You're right.
They need allowances to meet all these people to organize their meetings. What will you do to ensure that at least these assembly members get some fuel, get some allowances in organizing their people that they need to meet? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy you mentioned the word allowances. It is consistent with the provisions of the Act 936. And then the ministry is also working hard, developing the capacities of the assemblies to be able to generate more. If they are able to generate more, then they will have more access to resources to be able to implement most of their development plans, and then have enough resources to be able to pay them commensurate allowances, to ginger them to be able to perform. This is something we are going to form that strong team to support our minister to do more. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Zara.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, Mr. Nominee. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yeah. Mr. Nominee, my first question has to do with our MMDs. You know, most of them are struggling to carry out their developmental objectives, and they seem, as they go along, to be constrained by the arm of central government. Sometimes programs are hoisted on them that do not align with their own local developmental issues. What will you do in consultation with your sector minister to make the MMDs more independent so that their development projects can be tailored towards their localities?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the MMDs are a program to deliver certain sets of public goals, and they do so within the framework of the president. So therefore, in as much as we want to reduce the level of interference, we also make sure that they operate within the visions and the principles of Mr. President in trying to reach out to all the people of Ghana in terms of development according to the intent and purpose of his vision. And that is exactly what we do, not necessarily interfering in doing anything, but we also work to ensure that they work within the framework of their own district medium-term expenditure framework and annual budget. And we only supplement and monitor to ensure that they don't go out of their own expenditure framework. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question has to do with the Department of Parks and Gardens. Department of Parks and Gardens. It's one of the departments under your ministry, and they seem to have gone extinct in this country. Recently, I drove past what's going on here because I saw trees being felled, the sand is being moved. What will you do?
Up and doing, but their activities are limited only limited to extend to the nationals and the regionals. I want to agree with you that we need to help to decentralize the activities of parks and gardens to the districts and the municipalities so that they'll be able to afford guidance in terms of the beautification, the aesthetics, and the way we plan things. So this is a vision that my minister has given an indication to pursue. And we're going to form that strong team to be able to support him to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. My last question is to do with the naming and street naming and property naming. I think the framework was started sometime in 2011 and is gone far, but some properties and streets still remain unnamed and unnumbered. Will you be able to give us some timelines when you can ensure that they're halfway? So if we want the entire country to move along that agenda, it means we need to carry this project along across the country. Can we get any timelines on when this can be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I agree with the honorable member, the need for us to intensify our approach to the digitization and all that. But as you do know, issues of timelines, per the description portfolio, I'm to deputize, I'm to assist my honorable minister. And I need his concurrence to be able to give that timeline. So, Honorable, I think I'm not going to say that you may file a question, but I think that it is within the domain of the Honorable Minister to tell you emphatically when we're able to reach out to the entire length and the breadth of the country. But as you also indicated, this Vice President office is so committed to the issues of the street naming, digitization, that so it's given the presidential fiat. We hope that in no good time we will be able to reach out to the entire country. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Isinti,
Yes,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Just want to find out from you on the status of these projects, which are very dear to my heart. The Takoradi Market Circle project is about 180 million euros.
Yes.
The Kumasi Central Market Phase 2 project is also about 248 million euros. Sword was cut on the 2nd of May 2019 for the Kumasi one. What is the status, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Kumasi Market Projects Phase 1 is completed, and then it's handed over to the Assembly, and then it's been implemented. Workers, workers are all that, they are using it. The Takoradi
Kumasi Phase 2.
And then the Kumasi Phase 2 has also started. We had some few challenges with respect to evacuating some of the traders who were the original occupiers of the lands and all that. We needed time to Takoradi market. Same thing, the cabinet agreements on it. Cabinet and both Parliament has given an approval, and the contractor has conducted the initial feasibility works, and they are on site. And I believe that very soon that project will also take off. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I wish him well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, you touted your performance and talked of how it helped to catapult you into your current position as Member of Parliament in the constituency in the Ashanti region. Whilst you were doing that,
Mr. Chairman, but unfortunately that village you are talking about is not part of my constituency. It's in Offenso South. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
but the indication is that it is near the Asampanaye community, which is in your constituency, and you did visit there during campaigns and promised to fix the school, and the school is still looking up to you. It's actually a death trap. It's operating from, ramshackle plywoods put together. Yes, and according to your constituent, you promised to fix it, and they're still looking up to you to come and assist.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is true that there are some communities who are in dire need of projects like the schools and all that. And I have promised to fix them. And the assurance is that I'm going to do it. But, Mr. Chairman, the Akrofra he's mentioned is still not part of my constituency. It's within the official side.
Chairman, I have a difficult honorable Deputy Minister nominee. You are Deputy Minister of State. Your answer should go above constituency. If for nothing, this Assembly Common Fund, you can make recommendation in pursuit of free compulsory basic education for this particular education infrastructure to be fixed. You are to serve the people of Ghana, not just your constituent. So if you want narrow capacity representative as MP, minister, higher level, so come again.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, leader, the question was constituency specific. He did mention a community within offensive traditional area, specifically Akrofwa. That's why, Mr. Chairman, I provided constituency specific response to that question. Thank you.
Okay, this is on a lighter note. Nana Kwekubonsam is from your constituency. And the indication was that with his spiritual powers, he intended to contest you in the last elections and to replace you as the member of parliament for the area with spiritual help, as he put it at the time. Is it the case that you are more spiritual than he is? Because in the end, the indication is that he didn't even file to contest. What happened?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as you rightly said, Kwekubonsam is a constituent. It's a constituent, and then somebody who has also contributed his quota in some of the constituencies. He is right. He has the right and the compliments contest me for the position of Offensive North parliamentary candidateship. But at the end of the day, the good people of Offensive North spoke, and the verdict is clear. And the verdict is that they still need me to represent them as a member of parliament, and they will continue to support me. And
it was not a battle of spiritual powers, but a battle of the people's voice.
Right. Rightly so, Mr. Chairman. It wasn't a battle of spiritual, but it was a battle of competence and then the people's choice. And the people accepted me, and they had a lot of confidence in me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, because you worked as Deputy Minister in the last administration, I think it's appropriate if I ask you to explain to this committee if it was a government or government decision for municipal chief executives and district chief executives to execute projects through parliamentary candidates of the New Patriotic Party or in the name of parliamentary candidates of the New Patriotic Party. And if this was sanctioned at the level of the ministry, because it was all over the country, where New Patriotic Party parliamentary candidate, were those put forward as those initiating and cutting sword for construction of projects and commissioning some projects that were executed by the Assembly.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of what the Honorable Member of Parliament for Tamale North is pontificating. What I do know is that members of Parliament and district chief executive, they are very important stakeholders in the development affairs of their district and the constituency. And as a ministry, we continue to advise and urge them to work together so that they'll be able to give meaningful development to the constituents. And that is what I do know. But as to parliamentary candidate commission and all that, Honorable Suhini, I'm not aware. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to bring the proceedings to a close in 15 minutes. So, I'll give the 5 minutes to you, then I'll bring proceedings to a close.
Chairman, why, me, I have like 100 questions and you are giving me, you see, they are intimidating me with Asante Kokos. Chairman, I just want to take him to his CV. Honorable Collins, he and I have served on the health committee for long, so I really know him. You look at University of Science and Technology, 1990 to 1994, Sunyani Secondary School, 85 to 87. You see that there's a 3-year gap. Were you farming cashew?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you know the nature of the academic calendar. It normally overlaps. So we have 1985. That's the interment of that things that you see there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, you see that the Sunyani Secondary School, you went there for your A-level. You are qualified to go to university. Even if you add that, it still doesn't it doesn't cover the gap to 1990, because your University of Science and Technology, the BSc Biological Science,
yes,
was from 1990 to 94.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, it's right. After the graduating from 1987, I had.
So, do you have any special reason why the Cashew Development Board has not been established?
Mr. Chairman, as part of His Excellency's vision of using agriculture to transform the rural economy, to trigger rural industrialization, the Planting for Export in the Rural Development Program, which was launched, it was a collaborative effort between the Minister of Local Government and the Minister of Food and Agriculture. As part of the pillars, we have the 3 pillars for that program. The first pillar has to do with the on-farm support, where assemblies has to raise seedlings and then they give seedlings to the farmers and at 0 cost. And then the assemblies also provide extension services to them. Then the second pillar has to do with the business support program, where the farmers are educated, and then we put them into cooperatives to be able to link up with the private sector to drive the industrialization agenda. The third pillar had to do with legal reforms. And that under that legal reforms, a bill was approved. That's the National Tree Crop Development Bill, was approved by Cabinet, and then Parliament pass it. And that bill also begat the National Tree Crop Development Authority. As part of the work of the authority is to develop a framework that will look into the issues of marketing, issues of marketing, issues of licensing, issues of research and all that. So the board was also has to do beyond cashew, bring on board 6 additional crops so that we have one big entity overseeing the development of these 3 crops in addition to the cashew. And the crops, Mr. Chairman, includes the cashew itself, the mango, the shea, oil palm, coffee, and coconut. So instead of coming out with just one board to look at all the issues of cashew, the minister thought that it is more apt to look into the broader framework of bringing 6 commodity chains so that it takes on board all the other issues of marketing, not only in cashew, but the remaining commodity chains. Thank you, Mr.
Chairman, he knows that since the establishment of these 3, three crop authority, nothing significant has changed when it comes to the guaranteed pricing. You know, one of the biggest problems for you and I who are into farming is that you look at this year's pricing, you use all your energy and resources to cultivate, and then before it's time for harvesting, the prices collapse. Or some of the products, their prices will simply just collapse. And you have the glut and the struggle, them do planning and be able to recoup their investment. Having served on this Ministerial Advisory Board, what plans do you think the ministry has to be able to achieve this so that farmers can be guaranteed this some security in terms of their outputs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you're right. The authorities' focus in the thinking of the minister, it's even going to be bigger than the cocoa board. And that is why he's bringing on board about 5 additional crops. And it's a new establishment. And we believe that when it stands on its feet, issues of pricings will be dealt with just in the same way as that of the cocoa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, look at the spelling of Nkrumah. I thought that if you get any spelling wrong, not that of Nkrumah, on the second page where you are talking about teaching assistant, Kwame Nkrumah, University of Science and Technology, the spelling. And then apart from that, look at the period, T.I. Ahmadiyya Secondary School, Kumasi. You were a tutor from 1997 to 2005.
Yes.
Around the same time, you were also a teaching assistant at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. How do you explain this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chima, it is true. Just at the same time as I was doing some teaching at the T.I. Secondary School, I also applied to the University of Science to pursue a master's program. And I had the admission, same time as I was teaching in T.I. Secondary School. At least during the tail end of my teaching, I also learning as in my master's program, and I also doing some part-time teaching as a teaching assistant in the Department of Biological Sciences. Thank you, Mr.
So it's not in Parliament alone that we do attempt, or you are attempting, or lastly, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the private sector, Collins A.C.N.C. Co. and Company Limited, what do you do? What does this company?
In the downstream distribution of petroleum pollutant jointly with Vivo Energy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Honorable, but before I give it to the minority leader, look at your public sector work experience. Deputy Minister, 2016, January 2021. You were not a minister in 2016, please. Should be January or 2017.
Mr. Chairman, it was an error 2017.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Akumadan, then I know I'm living Ashanti for the Bunu region where I get the sweet potato, mango, and others. 1D, 1F, have you been able to promote one in that area? Because lots of horticultural crops in that area, Nananum and others in that area should be looking at value addition of processing any of the food crops in that area. Any indication that you are providing leadership in that direction?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in Kinkesu, it's my hometown. That's where I come from. And it's one of the important communities within the Offensive North constituency. And as part of His Excellency's vision to add value to the produce, we have programmed and positioned Offensive North to have 3 of such facilities. We have undertaken serious investment in cashew production. The idea is to lay the foundation, preparing substantial raw materials to feed into a proposed cashew processing factory, which is going to be sited in Nkinkesu. As we speak.
Sited where?
At Nkinkesu.
When should they expect it? When should the community expect some work to commence on the siting of a cashew processing plant in the community you just mentioned? Thank you, Chair.
The process has already begun. As I said, the critical component of industrialization is the establishment of a sustainable raw material base to be able to do that, which over the years for the past we are working on. And then the land for that, we have also had an engagement with a strategic investor who is ready to establish that factory. Then the second has to do with tomato factory. When we talk about tomato in Ghana, the first thing that has to do with Akumadan. Indeed, to be able to develop on that, we have also, through the collaboration of the Ministry of Food and established one of the government initiative on greenhouse village. It's in Akumadan. The essence of it is to bring technology to bear on the cultivation and the development of Gov'T, and also laying the foundation for the creation of sustainable raw tomatoes for the intended tomato factory that we are. Currently, there's an investor from the UK. He's also undertaking a research to get the right variety, the variety that will be suitable for value addition to be able to do that. And we are hoping that in the course of the foreseeable future, that factory will be established. Then one important town has to do with Afrancho. Afrancho is also the 3rd biggest community in Offensive North. As we speak, the private sector has also established a starch factory, and it's at advanced stage, over 85 to 90% complete. We are hoping that very soon that project will be completed, so that the cassava farmers will also have some relief, because they will have access to good markets to process the factory.
Yeah, Chairman, Mr. Nominee, your ministry is responsible for local government and rural development. One of the major social problems of our country is rural-urban migration of what is rightly described as the push and the pull factors. What drives the young girls from up north through Ulugu Gambaga, coming through Nasia to Tamale in search of non-existing jobs. I measure performance on the street at Kokumlemle when I see the young girls. You should drive there at night, and you'd appreciate what it means to abandon home to come to Accra. And it's a scar on all of us, our conscience, that we're not doing enough as a country to provide livelihood for that category of people. Any plans to deal with the rural-urban migration menace? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The issue of job creation to drive the agenda of rural-urban migration is also core on the implementation of programs in the Ministry of Local Government. There's a project, a well-bound project we call Ghana Productive Safety Nets. It is tailor-made to create jobs for the very poor and the vulnerable within the people within the transitional zones. 80 poorest districts has been identified, and that project is supposed to provide not only the physical assets by way of construction of dams, by way of construction of feeder roads and agricultural intervention. It is designed in such a way that the delivery systems will make it possible for a retention of about 60% of the fund remaining in the constituency, using a program we called labor-intensive public works. That is during the dry spells, when people have to stay out of jobs, a potential to address that. Linking that project is the agricultural linkages, where we construct the dams and then raise the nurseries. And then we give out the nurseries. Also linked to another project we call the productive inclusions, where as a ministry we've targeted to provide 30,000 households within the scope of the project with some level of micro enterprises, and then give them a starter pack to start the venture. I believe that when we continue on that trajectory, a lot more of the people will want to remain.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Nominee. Assembly members, do you subscribe to the proposal that they be paid a token of an allowance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I subscribe to that, and that is exactly what the status quo. We pay them an allowances. We cannot put them on salary in the sense that it thrives on the professional skills.
Not salary, a monthly stipend. You can decide that it's not a salary, but just say
to suggest, because it encourages many more people to contribute to the development of the community. In doing so, we are also mindful about the kitty. And that is why the program of local governance thrives on the professionalisms, the professional expertise of teachers, lawyers, and all that. But that notwithstanding, the ministry is providing a lot of interventions by way of enhancing revenue generation, so that when the assemblies are able to generate enough revenue, then they will be able to have enough resources to implement their medium-term expenditure framework, and also be able to provide sufficient allowances to the assembly members. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
National Address Infrastructure. Have you read the Supreme Court ruling on Bodo Ayeni Richard Kwasiga on the District Assembly Common Fund, to appreciate what is it that must come to the fund established within the meaning of Article 252 of the Constitution?
Mr. Chairman, I haven't read that. And then as you are mentioning it, it means that it's something that is there and it will help promote the cause of local governance.
Because the ruling is significant in appreciating how much total revenue is determined and what percentage of that revenue must be dedicated to the District Assembly Common Fund, which largely becomes a primary reliable source of revenue for your ministry and for the state. You haven't read it?
I haven't read it, but I have some information.
Will you ask the Honorable Obiamwa, the Senior Deputy Minister, to give you a copy of the ruling for your purposes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You need to
do that. Yes.
Because when you bring the formula, now we'll be interested in knowing what the total national revenue is. Now we'll compute a percentage of it. But Do you share the view that, it used to be 5%, this Assembly Common Fund was increased to 7.5%. Because of budget rigidities, it was reduced to 5%. In order to make more resources available for local government and decentralization in Ghana, would you subscribe helping your minister to adjust it upwards?
Bring liquidity in the performance of the district assembly to be able to enable them to implement developmental projects for the benefit of the community. I do subscribe. And I also do subscribe that they need to intensify their skills in the internal revenue generation so that they will be liquid enough to be able to undertake most of their development projects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, my final one is on births and deaths registry. It's only in Ghana that we don't take some of these matters seriously. It only takes a mobile application installed for us to be able to monitor births everywhere in the country. I mean, now with Momo and mobile money, that is the innovative. I saw in your CV, you say you are champion in innovation. So,
including your good self, did a great service in catching the Birth and Death Act, which seeks to decentralize the registration of birth and death. Something that also seeks to deepen our process of decentralization. It's a good thing. And the assurance is that I'll support my minister.
Chairman, the nominee is still talking like he's in a biology lecture. It's of the appointments committee. I wish you well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for attending upon the committee to answer our questions. You will hear from us later.
Thank you, Mr.
Members,
Chairman.
thank you. That should bring us to the end of considerations for today. And our members should stay back, take decisions on the nominees now and then.
They might to some kakre was supreme.